But at the highest level, you want to make sure that it's not too pitchy, that they don't pitch too hard. That tier below for the people that are just getting started out of guys, maybe you can bring in a little bit more pitchy, but I think with the high end guys, you want to make it, you want them always to get value, always to feel valued. That's the key. You want them to feel valued. And you do that by bringing in people that deliver, not people that are trying to take. But it just, whatever's outside of your wheelhouse, just you bring people in that can help with that.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. I'm your host, Christian D. Evans. And guys, as you can see, I'm outside in this beautiful sun because why? It is April and we are enjoying the sun. And guys, we have an incredible guest on today because the reason why I want to have him on is because he's been around the block in so many different avenues. But the thing is, it's about experience. It's about developing. It's actually about results. And I wanted to bring him on because he's got the results. He's been able to produce incredible amount of results, not only in his life, but also in others. And so we're going to dive into a lot of cool things, definitely in the coaching consulting world, how to create a lot of other income streams on top of what you're already doing and producing and creating. And so this man is an entrepreneur at heart and enjoys helping other business owners develop and implement strategies to grow their business. He has been utilizing online tools to build businesses since 1997. Like I said, he's been around the block. When he built RMTG Billings, mountain-based software company, from a $6,000 investment into a multi-million-dollar 30-employee company that built a pharmacy system still in use at Albertson Super Value. This man in 2005, retired from RMTG and realized that the best way for most businesses to market effectively was to use integrated online marketing campaigns to drive customers through their doors. Now, this man, my friend, please welcome Doug McIsaac. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. I wish it was as sunny as warm here as it is where you're sitting. So it's a cool April morning for us right now. So, and it might even snow tomorrow.
Well, believe it or not, it was literally snowing this Monday actually, and it was just crazy. So that's why I'm outside enjoying it. But hey, I'm really looking forward to diving in because one of the things that you mentioned, because I wanted to kind of dive into it and then I kind of loop around and talk about your journey. But one of the things you mentioned before this podcast that we jumped on is you said, obviously, you've been around the block and your thing that you're passionate about is really helping other consultants and coaches really help develop other income streams, right? Produce what they're already creating, and then obviously branch into certain other services and processes that produce better income as well. So I'd like to kind of talk about that. First of all, how did you come to that conclusion in your own life, in your own business? And then secondly, what other strategies are good extra upsells for other companies?
It really came down, I was doing lead generation and for consultants, and they get busy. I'd get them clients and they'd want to pause the lead generation, which stopped my income. And I'm like, you don't want to do that. And I'm like, they're like, well, no, but I'm busy. It's like, well, no, you need to keep your lead generation going. So you need to figure out ways to handle the additional business and also create recurring revenue streams, because all consultants go through this feast and famine cycle. I've gone it through myself. Right now, about 80% of our business, absolutely all of our bills are paid by recurring revenue in my company. So we don't have to work. We know everything's taken care of tomorrow. I mean, we know next month's taken care of, the month after that's taken care of. It's all recurring revenue is what we focus on. But I started doing it just because these clients would stop their lead generation. I said, no, I need to show you how to create other revenue streams so you don't want to stop your lead generation, other ways where you can handle these people. With some clients, like one of my favorites, Tom, he helps behavioral health care clinics receive their CARF and Joint Commission accreditations, which they need to get funding from either insurance companies or from states. And he started out with just him and one part-time guy. Now he's got 11 people. For his team, for his type of consulting, there's a face-to-face component that's needed because they help him do on-site inspections. So what I did is I showed him how to bring people on board, and then I showed him how to train a guy to handle all the sales calls, so he didn't have to do it. So with his team, he did that. And once we have that infrastructure in place, then I said, okay, how do we keep how do we keep you, how do we generate a recurring revenue stream for you? And we came up with a tool that he uses to keep the people, he charges like $300 a month, and now he has about 100 clients on it. It doesn't sound like a lot, but $3,000 a month pays a lot of bills, and it's starting to grow. Sorry, that's 30,000 a month. So I mean, it starts paying a lot of bills. He's doing over $1 million now, and it's only going to continue to grow. I think it's a $5 million company. So. Yeah.
Well, see, what I find so interesting about this, because see, I love what your approach is, right? Because the reality is, a lot of times we think so linear, right? Oh gosh, I've helped someone and I've done my job, and now I go to the next person. And the reality is that you want to keep them in your circle, in your tribe, in your community, whatever, because there's always other opportunities, right? When you the hardest is the first sale, but the second and third sale on the back end, it's the easiest. And I think I love what you're saying here. Very few coaches really emphasize that and say, okay, well, what else do they want? And then create that and then give it to them. And so let's talk about, obviously, you figured out, okay, kind of how that came about in your own life, but what other opportunities in coaches and consulting are they missing that they could add into their own business right now?
Well, here's another example. I had a client that she said, Doug, if I never have to get on a plane again, it'd be great, because she had a beautiful home, but she was never there because she's always traveling, making $500,000 a year, but she was never home. And I said, okay, well, let's look at what you can do, another way you can generate revenue. Well, with her, we did an online program, so an online course that was consistent, and then twice a year she did big seminars where people would fly to her. So then basically, instead of having to get on a plane at all, I mean, she only got on planes when she felt like traveling somewhere, and there were 1 or 2 clients she visited, but instead of traveling all the time, she set up an online program that was relatively simple, where people could come on, and she just basically took her standard training and moved it online and was able to add people to it. And that was a big revenue stream for her. And then when she added in the 2 big seminars couple times a year, where she helped the people essentially get certified in her methodologies, that was also a big bump each year for her. So every client's a little different. I'm not I've been around, I say, a couple of blocks. Most people that jump into this that have been consulting for 2 or 3 years, they have one tool. They're like, okay, I do masterminds, and I know how to do a mastermind. Or they like, oh, you need an online course, you need an online course, and or you need to do seminars. But I've done it all, and I've done it all myself, and I've done it all with clients. So I go in and I meet with them. I have what I call the, I'm blanking on my own name, but I have a methodology where I walk you through 12 steps. But the first one is always understanding where you're at, what you have, what makes you unique, and then helping you develop a plan to get where you want to go. And I call it the McIsaac Doctrine. I'm kind of a history geek, so it's kind of like the Monroe Doctrine. So where I help people go from back in the day, go from the East Coast and the old world to the new world out in the West. I do the same thing with consultants and business owners. So I take them away from the old way of doing business, and I show them how to move into the new way of doing business and how to make it so additional revenue streams and all that, but get away from the way they're doing it. Because most of my clients are guys my age or older. They've been doing it for 20, 30 years. They're very successful. They've got a good life, but they're finding that the referral sources are dying and retiring. So a lot of that's going away. So to keep the business going, they needed to come up with additional lead generation sources. So we did that. And then they're also realizing that they don't want to travel as much as they used to. So I find things that'll work for them. See, for like when you're dealing with C-suite, typically masterminds are the type of thing you go for. Masterminds, workshops, that type of thing. But usually for employees, we create courses. So we don't create a lot of courses for the C-suite because they really value their time. But in the C-suite level, we develop more masterminds and programs like that because it makes more sense. And then we do the courses for employees. Like one of my, I had a client that passed away here recently that we had just developed a course for. He did a lot of work with Great Clips, and he trained the frontline managers. And what we've done is we've taken all of the trainings he's done in person, where they'd fly him in and have him on site, and we turned those into a video series. And we were actually just starting to market it when COVID hit, And then when he fell ill and has since passed. But that was a good example of a tool, whereas he might have still done some one-on-one coaching with the owners of the franchisees, especially the multi-franchise owners. But with the staff, we developed a course that he was going to provide online for them and give them a community that they could communicate within. So with me, it's not one tool. I mean, I have a toolkit that I've used with a lot of clients, and I've used myself because I built and sold my agency twice. I owned a software consulting company for just shy of a decade. And what we've done things differently. And I just love the tools, and I love helping people find ways to make additional revenue without having to be, sitting in front of people, because too many consultants get stuck. It doesn't matter how much you charge per hour. You can charge 1,000, 3,000, 10,000 an hour. There's still a limit to how many hours you can bill in a year. So we need to figure out ways that we can make revenue without having to do that. Even if it's just like one of my clients, when COVID hit, $500,000 in business left her calendar in 3 days. So, and she's an old friend of mine. I'd been on her for 5 years to do more stuff online, but she refused to do online. Because she liked to do in-person trainings, $10,000 day trainings, and she refused to do it. Well, I kept hammering on her, nudging her. And finally, that was in March that she lost all the business. And in August, finally, I got her to start doing some online trainings, and I got her comfortable with Zoom, and I showed her how to do it and showed her how to adapt her in person to online. And now she loves it. And she's like, this is great. I don't have to fly anywhere. I can do more of these if I want to, so sometimes it's just getting your life back. It's like, because that traveling's a lot of fun when you're young, but you get a little older and you just get tired of it. You know what I mean? It's like, I love traveling, but getting on a plane every week to go somewhere to speak to yet another group of people, it's tiring. I mean, once a month is okay, but every week is not. And she's finding that she can do these trainings instead of it taking her 3 days, a day there, the day of this talk, and then a day travel back. She can do 3 a week, if she wants to, and multiply her revenue without really she's doing more training, but she's not spending more time. She's taking that traveling out of the equation, and now she can make additional revenue just by doing the trainings over Zoom.
See, that makes perfect sense. And see, I know a lot of individuals, just like you were saying, to reiterate what you're saying, is like the one-on-one coaching, right? And that's kind of their bread and butter, right? But after they've done the 12-week program, whatever that may be, then of course, like we were talking about, like what's the next level for those? Yeah. And a lot of times, Sally, I was literally just talking to someone as well that, okay, they had that program, they were doing a lot of good acquisition on the front end, but then there was never the next step. And so my question to you, okay, Doug, as an expert that has many, many channels that you've worked with, let's say some of our audience are doing about that one-on-one, or maybe they're doing group, right? Yeah. What would you, because everybody's always trying to look for that high leveraged activity, right? What's the next thing that's going to create the best return? That's not going to create so much input. Like I don't have to put so much energy, but it would create the biggest output, right? And so my question is, because there's so many different strategies out there. Each strategy will work, but it's just a matter of which one will produce the best for them. So let's say you're at one-on-one coaching now. Yep. What would you say is the next level on the back end to upsell those clients? Would it be a mastermind? Would it be information? Would it be kind of more a retainer and saying, hey, be part of this community for 1,000, 500? What does that look like? What would you suggest?
For when it's business owners, when it's a C-level or a business owner, that level, usually mastermind is a great way to go. You're usually moving into a mastermind unless there's specific skills that they need. If there's a specific skill set that they need to work on, maybe they need to improve their marketing, or maybe they need to improve their communication with their staff, or they have specific problems. If there's specific stuff, you can create programs just for those specific things for them. And usually you'll find that I have a client who she is a fractional CTO, and she's developing right now. She's really just getting started. So we're building her packages, but the goal is she will ultimately have specialized trainings to show people how to set up the processes within their organization. But when somebody is going from that one-to-one to that next level, there's the two directions. One is if they have specific trainings, and usually it's staff. If there's specific trainings that the staff need, those can be moved into courses. and some sort of an online component, maybe of an online community. But with the owners, typically we move them into a mastermind where you have other business owners on, other people at the same level or slightly above level, so that gets the power of a mastermind is why we love them, because you get so much more out of hearing somebody else having a similar problem to you and how they solved it than any coach could give an individual, any consultant. Even though we talk to lots of different people, we still can't deliver as much value as getting 12, 15, 20 really smart people who are all at approximately the same level in the same room helping each other out. We can't do that. But when we do that, it's really powerful. So that's why yeah, go ahead.
No, I appreciate it. I think that's just incredible insight. Just to kind of pivot on what you're saying there, to kind of dive deeper. So masterminds, okay? I love that approach. What would you suggest in facilitating, like the group size, and as well as should you bring like an affiliate, someone that is part of your network, maybe some higher level, or maybe the same kind of same level as you, bringing them as kind of a guest speaker, creating maybe 5 or 6 individuals, and kind of pulling your resources. What does that look like?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you bring in other speakers, it's for specialized skills. So maybe you're working with, for example, you're working with business owners in a variety of industries. They're not all in the same industry. So, but they still can talk. They're all service-based industries. So they all are talking about the same things. You could reach out and you'd find out what problems they need solved that are outside of your wheelhouse. And then you bring people in for that. Maybe they don't know how to read financial statements. So you bring in somebody that specializes in dumbing it down, making it make sense to business owners, So you bring in somebody that'll do that for them. Maybe they have time management issues. So you bring in somebody that can help them specifically with that. Whatever's out of your wheelhouse, you bring in other people that can help with that. Now, they may or may not have other products, or typically they'll have other products or services that they would promote. But usually within a mastermind, you don't want them to promote too hard, because business owners, smart business owners, if they have, if somebody comes and they get value from them, they will talk to them. They'll reach out to them. And so, yeah, it's always good to bring people in. But at the highest level, you want to make sure that it's not too pitchy, that they don't pitch too hard. That tier below, for the people that are just getting started out of guys, maybe you can bring in a little bit more pitchy. But I think with the high end guys, you want to make it, you want them always to get value, always to feel valued. That's the key. You want them to feel valued. And you do that by bringing in people that deliver, not people that are trying to take. But it just, whatever's outside of your wheelhouse, you bring people in that can help with that.
I love that, because it's don't be afraid to network with other individuals. Like you say, you don't have to be an expert in everything, but you can network with experts that are better at it, right? And obviously bring that in, and obviously that's just more value. And sometimes, what I always found very interesting, I've never ran a mastermind, but when I've attended, it almost postured that person even higher, because it's oh, that was respectful, because he knows this person, ABC or whatever, right? So let me ask you this, okay? Let me jump in real quick.
It's called you borrow the authority. So it's borrowed authority. Just like to some extent I'm borrowing your authority by being on your podcast, it's borrowed authority by bringing people out in your network to speak in front of those people. So that's what helps bring you up. Sorry.
No, I love it. Thank you so much for clarifying. And now my question now is, I do understand there's some on the back end as well, kind of the retainer model, subscription model. I love that kind of industry, because it does create that, passive side of things, right? Mm-hmm. And really, you never want to produce that unless it's for a specific niche, right? So first of all, who would that be? So let's say, for example, information or trainings, right? I kind of have an idea, but I'd love to get your perspective, as well as on the back end, higher end retainers, right? Being part of a community, who would that be part of for?
Right. For me, I work with consultants and coaches, but people that are primarily B2B, business to business. And when I'm working with them one-on-one or within my small groups, I am teaching them how they can grow their business with that, and how they can focus their business, whether it's building packages or building masterminds, or that's what I'm helping them with. Now, if they have staff that need additional training, either I'll bring someone in for that, or we'll either find or create a course that helps them answer those questions, though their staff can help develop that. So we create, whether it's like my client that does frontline manager training. You know, if you have somebody that's a frontline manager for you, or you have somebody that does event planning for you, or someone that's your social media manager, we can bring people in to do trainings for that staff as well. But usually I focus on people that are B2B business consultants and coaches. That's kind of my niche. It's a little broad and sometimes, but it's all about, but all the marketing's the same. You know, it's the same when they're marketing to, whether it's somebody that coaches Great Clips people or somebody that coaches, does speeches at Fortune 50 companies. You know, it's like, it's a very similar marketing style. I have people that do team building. I have the client that's a fractional CTO. So, I mean, I have people in a variety of industries, but it's all B2B sales. And B2B sales are very different than a business to consumer sale. And so we make sure that we understand their marketing, how that works, the positioning, the branding, all of that. That's always been the area I've focused in. I've done in the past, I did stuff that was just for digital marketing companies. I called it local social is what it was, is I showed people how to build a local social media marketing company. Did that 8-10 years ago. And that was a different business model, but that was one that I showed people how they could grow that when it was really just starting. Social media was just starting to become needed. And now it's, you know, if you don't have it in your marketing, I wrote a post not too long ago that it was like social media marketing is dead, because really anymore, it's just marketing. It's just marketing. You know, you don't even need to say social media marketing. If you're not using social media as a channel, your business is gone. I mean, very few businesses can survive today without doing stuff online. So, sorry, I went in a circle there, but yeah, that's my client is B2B. I love working with business to business people because the sales are similar no matter what industry they're selling into.
Well, you're 100%, because see, even like LinkedIn or anything like that, you know, B2B, I think that they came up with a stat. It was like 80% of B2B sales are actually still through relational, right? It's not through cold audience and stuff like that. And so, you know, I do know a lot of coaches, consultants, service providers. They are on the podcast and they produce books. They're producing content. And the thing is I'm a little against the concept of just producing content for the sake of producing content.
Right.
See, one of the things is you have to be strategic with it. And so I love to get your expertise on, okay, how do you be strategic? And like I said, is like those high leverage activities. Okay, when I produce something, when I do a press release, when I produce a podcast, how do I effectively deploy that strategically so it produces the best result? It's not just, I put a social media post out on LinkedIn and nobody likes it, right? I understand the long game, but it's like you have to understand there's some sort of strategic approach to it. And sadly, I think that's why a lot of people are stuck at that $1 million mark, because they're doing very well. But honestly, to be at $1 million, you only need a few clients at, you know, 20, 30,000, whatever, right? A pop. So if you could explain that.
It's that getting from 1 to 10, that's the really painful range. What you need to do, especially if you're talking social, your marketing, when you're being strategic about it, you need to focus on content that shows that you know how to take people along that journey. You know the journey that they're on, and you need to focus on content that shows that you understand where they're at and the steps they need to take to get where they want to go. And I mean, that's almost any training is that way, but you need your content to be that way too. So you need the person reading it to understand that you understand them and their problems. It's not always one problem with the business owner, it's usually problems. So that you understand them and that you've worked with people that are like them and help them solve their problems. So you need your content to show that and show that you followed that path. Now, nobody's going to, you know, rare is somebody going to see all the pieces of content, but you need to make sure that your content shows the different steps that you take people through to get them from, if it's from 1 million to 10 million, you talk about the pain points that you're going to hit along the way, and you show how you've helped other people get through those pain points. It's good if you've been on the path as well, and you can show that you've walked that path, but it's even more important that you can show that you've helped 20, 30, 50, 100 other people walk that path as well.
I love it. I love that insight. I think that's just so true, because it's a very strategic way of things. Now let's kind of pivot a little bit. Okay. So, you know, obviously kind of explaining the different ways of creating that income, right? I always think about also just the fulfillment, as well as like obviously building out your team, right? Because in order to do that, you have to make sure you're operationally on the back end, which a lot of people don't think it's sexy, but I think it's very necessary to talk about. What are certain strategies? Because as a business owner, let's be honest, we love doing our little thing of talking and blah, 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 right? And we don't really like the operations and the non-sexy things, accounting, bookkeeping. So we're not going to talk about that stuff, but we're going to talk about the operations.
Yeah.
How do you sustain that at a higher level and really grow to that next level, man?
I mean, what I did is I brought on a business partner that excels at that. That's what I did. Matter of fact, he's on the other side of the wall behind me, so in our office here. So that's what I did. So I could focus on my zone of genius. And I think that a lot of people, consultants have the same problem. We all have the same problem we tell our clients. We tell our clients, because entrepreneurs, especially small business owners, don't value their own time. There is a stage in every business where you are the guy taking out the trash, and you're probably the guy that's vacuuming the carpets and all that. But you need to, as quickly as possible, get away from that and get away from doing your bookkeeping. Yes, you need to review your financials, but you shouldn't be the guy entering information into your QuickBooks or whatever your system is. It's too inexpensive, and you need to be spending time on those $1,000 an hour activities, those things that take your business and help it multiply to the next level. Now, not every business is going to have 8 hours a day, $1,000 hour days, but every business is going to have one, where you're actually thinking about the future. And when you're doing content right, when you are doing sales, making new sales copy, when you're planning new courses, that's $1,000 an hour activity, because that, when leveraged properly, is going to help your business grow that extra 6 figures, that extra 7 figures, move you to the next level. So you need to be able to focus on those types of things. And you do that by bringing staff on. And I mean, you just need to bring on people that know what they're doing, and you need to trust them, and you need to get the hell out of their way. I was just listening to a podcast earlier. Dan Kennedy had the 4-Hour Workweek guy on, and they were talking about how the 4-hour workweek works, and it was what he did. He literally got it to where 2 hours a week he was actually answering emails. Now, he isn't like that now, and he wasn't like that when he was selling his book, but he did that with his business before. And they were both talking about systems and how you need to get to where you focus. Like Dan Kennedy, he still does one-on-one consults, but they're 15, 20,000 a day, and he doesn't do that many of them. And then he's got his high ticket memberships where you can call him 15. He has like 2 hours a week that he's open, and you just keep calling until you get into him. And that's how he handles those. And he only get like 10 minutes with him. He's built his life. So he never, and if you want to meet with him, you have to fly to Cleveland, so he's done that at that level. He's a 7-figure, well, he's probably worth closing in on 9 figures these days, but he's built his life around that. And it was interesting him talking to Tim Ferriss about how Tim Ferriss did that as well with his supplement company, even though when he was selling his book, he was working 12-hour days. I mean, he was doing that and speaking and all that, but there are times we do sprints. But as long as we're focusing within our area of genius and we're able to bring in people to handle all those things, because the reality is most of us suck at bookkeeping. Most of us most of us that are good at strategy and helping our clients grow their businesses, we suck at doing that. So we need to bring people in for that. And the reality is, 90% of those tasks are like $20 an hour tasks. Matter of fact, they're $10 an hour tasks, but you pay somebody 20, you get somebody pretty good. So we need to focus on getting rid of that as quick as we possibly can, so that we can focus on growing our business. It's the whole E-myth. It's like we have to work on our business rather than in our business, and that's usually the first problem I have to help some of my clients solve, is to get them away from that. Whether it's handling all the sales calls themselves, doing all the books themselves, we need to look at those pieces and start separating them from that, so that they don't have to do it and bring other people in.
Well, see, what I find very interesting, you're exactly right. Even at the $1 million mark, that's where your head is spinning ridiculously, because you actually have a business that's growing and doing and building, but then on the back end, you're doing too much, or you got too many hats on. And the reality is you need to delegate those hats, just like you were saying. Yeah. So my question is, during that process, right, whether it be adding another income stream level, right, into that, which of course people logically like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. What are some pitfalls they should be aware of when they're implementing that?
Well, you need to make sure that what you're implementing is what your people are interested in. I mean, first, so often we get this idea and we think this is what they need. So then we run off to build it rather than finding out if that's what they want. Because one of the guys is like, you need to sell them what they want and sneak in what they need. Because that happens a lot too. It's like people want to grow their business from 1 million to 10 million. What they really need is to build in a operating infrastructure that can support that. So what you need to do is you need to have them focused on what they really want. But so often we're trying to sell them what they need, and that's not what they want. We need to understand what they want, and then understand what they need to build to support that, and show them that and why that they need to build that to support it. But that's probably one of the biggest issues of anybody that creates a course or in any program. They spend 6 months creating it, and then they put it out there and nobody's interested in it because you didn't position it properly, or you built something that they weren't interested in. That's the biggest pitfall, the number one pitfall there. The other thing is not valuing it properly. If you're dealing with somebody that's higher, someone that's a high-end consulting client, you go in and try and sell them something that's $297 a month, they're not interested. They're like that isn't enough money. I'm going to be in there with people that aren't worth talking to. So you need to make sure that you're charging enough that they believe in the value of it. And you also need to make sure that if you do a mastermind, that it is people on or near the same level. So you don't, if you've got a group of guys and gals that want to grow from 7 to 8 figures, you do not want anybody in there that's only doing 100,000, because they have different problems. You have different problems getting to 100 than you do getting to 1 million, than you do getting to 10 million. So you have different problems you have to solve. So you want people in the room that have the same level of problems. It's getting from 10 to 100 is very different, So you need to make sure that you have people in the room that understand the level, because either they're there or they're just a little bit ahead of the other people in the room. But you need to make sure that everybody's at or near the same level, and you need to make sure that you're charging based on the level that they are at as well. And then making sure that you are providing information that they're interested in. And it's pretty easy. Most consultants, especially when you're starting out and you're doing one-to-one, you just ask. Sure, you can survey them too, but if usually if you're doing one-to-ones, you're talking with maybe 20 people. Ask them, say, hey, I'm trying to get away from doing all these one-on-ones. I want to do a group program. If I was to build one like that, what would you like to see in it? And you just ask every one of your people that, and you take notes. And that is the way to figure out what it would look like. Now, some people will never want to do a group program and only want to do one-on-one. Others will love the idea of a group program. So what you do with the people that don't want to do the group, you just raise it until it fits the time value you want. If you're at 500 now and you don't want to do them, you raise it to 1,000, whatever that number is for you in the industry and the level of person that you're dealing with. I want to go back before to you're talking about how you grow the business. And there was an interview where they talked to Mark Zuckerberg about how did he grow Uber so fast? How did he add so many people? And he goes, I only had 7 direct reports. So as a business owner, we need to make sure that we're not trying to do everything. And we need to make sure we do not micromanage our people and we don't overstep them. If we've got managers working for us and they're managing the people below them, you do not step past those managers and tell people what to do. You don't want to confuse people. You want to work through your managers, because if you don't have good management in place, you either need to decide if you're going to train them to where they are going to be good enough managers, or you need to replace them. You should not be micromanaging them, and you should not be going down to that next level and doing that. You need to stick at your level and work with your managers and have your managers grow the business for you.
I love those massive insights, because see, first of all, the proof of concept, I've got a question on that, because obviously when you're developing something, you don't want to, like you just say, you don't want to spend, how many times have we said we don't want to spend all our time and energy on the front end, and all of a sudden they don't want it on the back end, right? Yeah. And how many, just ton of opportunities like that. Thousands. Right. And so my question is how do you effectively identify? And I've heard different approaches where, one, you ask and you interview people and say, what do you guys want? Or also what I've heard is you almost sell them on what they want, and then create the program on the back end. So, hey, sell, boom, boom, sell. What do you guys want? Okay, well, I'll give it to you. If I do that, wonderful, fantastic. Give us 5 Gs, 10 Gs, 100 Gs, whatever it is. And then actually create the program on the back end, because now you know what they want on the front end. And then my second question as well is to reiterate kind of what Doug's talking about, audience, is I've always learned about, like 3 years ago, I learned the idea of constraints, right? Which is what you're developing is like, hey, if you ask yourself the right question, if I wanted to grow, a $5 million business within 60 days, how would I do it, right? All of a sudden you put yourself in a constraint, not saying that you're going to, but how would you, right? And asking yourself the right question. And then as well as like, just like Doug said, if you only had 7 or 10 metrics that you had to determine, is this a successful business or not? All of a sudden, now you're very, very focused on, okay, what are those 7 to 10 metrics, right? And so you're putting yourself in a constraint, not meaning that you can't look at other metrics, but it really positions yourself and saying, okay, if it's those, what are the top 10? I don't want to look at 100,000. What are the top 10, right? And then all of a sudden delegating every other metric over to, like Doug was saying, to those people and allowing them to take ownership, not you. So my question, coming back to proof of concept, if you want to add anything into that, what is the most effective strategy to creating that and deploying it? Because obviously, like you said, that's the biggest hurdle. How would you say is to overcome that?
Well, the best way to do it is, like you said, you sell it, then you build it. I mean, that's even if it's a lower level course, even if it's not that high level mastermind, even if it's the lower level, bring a group through it live. Bring the first group through it live. And then that way you can ask them questions, find out what it's missing, and you can add that in as you're going through it. So you just you make it a 12-week program, 8-week program, whatever it is. And as you're building it, I mean, you know what you're going to build each week going forward. You have your outline laid out, you have your plan laid out, but you might not have everything created yet. And you create it as you're going, and you make sure that, you find out what was missing and you add that in. Maybe you find that, wow, it'd be really nice if there's a worksheet there. Oh, here's the worksheet, and you create that by having people live go through the program. And once they've gone through live, then you have something you can package and sell as a package, because people have gone through it and you've gotten their live feedback as you're going through it. That's the best way to create any course out there, and any mastermind program, the same thing. It's all about pivoting and improving as you're going down the road. Any program that you're doing, really, you just need to pivot. You do it live at least 1 or 2 times. You do it live and bring people through it live so that you can improve upon it. And then you can just sell it as a package if you want to after that.
I love it. Now let's kind of talk a little bit, because, with having experience comes failures, right? And so, Doug, I'd love for you to just, share with our audience, because I think they need to have the right perspective a little bit about some of the failures that you struggle with developing, obviously, the successful strategies that you have now.
Oh, I mean, you'll run into clients. I mean, one thing will be, you decide I'm going to do this mastermind. You'll find that none of your clients want to do a mastermind. You'll find that they're like, I'm working with one-on-one with the coach because that's what I prefer. Ironically, that's what I prefer. So I mean, it's like, but, there are some people like that. They just want to work on one-on-one. They do not want to work with a group program. If you run into that, you have 2 choices. One is find clients that do want a mastermind, or look at your rates and figure out a way that you can eliminate. Maybe like my friend that does trainings, that she just moved it to Zoom instead of having to get on a plane. I mean, it's very different to talk to somebody for 3 hours on Zoom than it is to get on a plane and go see them, when you're spending a day and a half to get to them. If you can, like even Dan Kennedy still meets with people one-on-one, but they have to come to him. So you can restructure your life to fit them. So that's one of the first issues that you run into. The other one is usually a pricing mistake. Usually pricing is the big mistake. I had a client that was selling, she wanted to charge individual license fees. She was selling front office training for dentists. And she wanted to charge a license for each person in the office. Then she was mad. Then she was all mad and concerned that, well, multiple people in the office are going to use this one login. And I'm like going, why don't we just raise the price and charge it for each practice? She goes, oh, I mean, it was like, it was just like, I mean, I'm like, who cares? I mean, it was like, I said, how many people does an average practice have? She goes, well, there'd be 4 or 5 people. Okay. So what's our per person rate? This much. Okay. Let's charge them this much. And she's like, oh, and that was how we solved that problem. So often we build problems up in our head that aren't real problems and we just need to solve them. But the biggest mistakes that happen, it goes back to building stuff that they don't want. That's the biggest mistake, or building what they need, not what they want. I mean, it was funny because I started out trying to sell social media services a decade ago, right? Well, back then, people they always believed they could do it themselves. They absolutely thought they could do social media services themselves. They all thought that they do their Facebook posts and all. I mean, people today even do think that. So back then, I started doing trainings and all that to get people to do this. I said, okay, here's I'm going to change this. I started doing public trainings and free trainings, teaching people how to use social media. So I'd get a whole bunch of people in the room. And then what I'd do is I'd pitch them SEO. And I'd sell, because SEO is too difficult. I would sell them the SEO. So you have to understand and make adjustments to what they're doing. Sometimes so that was me giving them what they wanted, which is the social media training. And then I sold them what they really needed as well, was SEO. So the search engine optimization as well, especially with local companies. I was doing Google local stuff back then. So that's what I sold them, because it was something that they could grasp and it's something they didn't want to mess around with. So you want to understand, that's one way to pivot with it. Another way is sometimes you try to go in adjacent industries, or you go into an industry that's so far out of whack that it doesn't work. It's either a marketing problem, you're not targeting your marketing right, or you just haven't done your research on the front end well enough. You haven't talked to enough people, and the biggest problem that happens is you're selling something people don't want. That's the most common problem. I've had that happen. I've had courses flop. I've had courses that I didn't really want to do that, did really well. I've had services that I really didn't want to deliver that sold really well. So I had to bring people in there to take care of those services. And it just happens. I mean, no matter how much we're in our industry, we're going to make some mistakes, but the more we're talking to people one-on-one, the more we're surveying our audience, the more we'll understand what they really need and what they really want. And then we provide what they want. We sell them what they want, and we give them what they need is really the best way to do it, where you're still, like you said, you're talking about the goals, the dreams, the aspirations, where they want to go, what they want. And then you show them the fundamental building blocks that they need to get there. And quite often they're not interested in knowing those until they're in the program, but then you got to show them how they get there. There's a gentleman I follow who he's always saying all of his stuff is like, here's the secret marketing trick, and it's like, how to do a customer avatar is the actual training. It's like, which to guys that have been marketing for 25, well, my first direct mail campaign was in 1988. So I've been at this a while. A lot of people, for those, that's not something new, doing a customer avatar or profile, but for a lot of people, I mean, I go into a client and I say, who's your customer? And they're like, anybody. And I'm like, no. I was doing a talk in front of a group of insurance agents, and I asked them that question. I said, well, sell anybody. I said, okay, so that guy on the corner with the sign, do you want to go sell him insurance? And like, well, no. I said, okay, so we will scratch him off. Let's start talking through you want to work with. And so now not everybody wants to work with the exact same person. One person wants to work with a young family. Another person wants to work with retirees. Another person wants to work with single people. They have a preference. That doesn't mean they wouldn't sell insurance to anybody that knocked on their door, but we show them how they target who they want to work with and how that'll help them grow their business. It's crazy that even when we say that like I say, I work with consultants and coaches, but I still get realtors that ask that I end up coaching realtors. I end up coaching other types of businesses as well, because even though all of my marketing and everything says I work with consultants and coaches, I still have other people coming to me for help, and it'll still happen. But it's funny that he did that, where he's saying these are secrets, and they're not secrets. But the thing is, we forget we get into an industry and we forget how much other people don't know, and we forget that 99% of the businesses out there have no idea who their customer really is. I mean, some do, but the bulk of them do not know who their customer is. And so often that's the first thing I help a client with. It's like, let's focus on who you really are working with. Let's focus on who you understand, and then make sure that we're delivering what that person needs beyond what you're already doing. Let's find other things that they need and figure out ways that you can deliver that as well.
See, what's so interesting about this, Doug, is that I love talking about this because so many people, they talk about the basic side of things, but it's like that 7-8 feet deep kind of stuff is what I like to talk about, because it's like we all understand. And even when you're leveling at $1 million, you think you've dialed in your avatar, but it's like then you can dial it even further, and that's actually how you scale to 8, 9, 10 million, believe it or not. And a lot of people, there's that fear base that comes in and says, well, if maybe, and I was talking to one consultant, one business owner, and he's in the oh gosh, what is it? The YouTube ad space. Okay. And that's his retainer. And I said, okay, well, you can work with, coaches, consultants, service providers. Cool. But what if you dial it all the way in and just work with coaches, even deeper, self-improvement coaches, right? All of a sudden, now what happens is what funnel they need, what offer they need, what YouTube ads, all those structure. And now what happens is you increase the price and you've dialed it down. You don't work with health coaches. You don't work with real estate. You don't work with anything else. You work only with this, and all of a sudden increase the price. And then that's how you scale, because now all of a sudden, operationally on the back end, it becomes so systematic and so easy. And then even on the front end, the acquisition is just so easy because you know exactly their pain. Hey, are you a coach with high self-performance, blah, 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 and you're struggling with this, this, and this? Like, you know exactly who you're talking to.
Exactly, You're speaking their language.
Right. And what I found so interesting is even when they're at $1 million, just like you said, they're successful and they got some acquisition. They got some people coming to them, but it's like one of those things. It's a discipline. And I'd love to talk to you a little bit about this. You have 10, 15 people that you love to work with. Yeah. But if you only had 1 or 2, who would those be? Right. And that have the lowest operation on the back end. And it's tough because all the other 8 you want to work with, you love to work with. Right. But your attention only has so much bandwidth.
Right. An example in the 4-hour work weeks, talking about that, one of the things Tim did when he was able to get his business down to the 4-hour work week is he looked at all of his customers. He had 100 and some wholesale customers, and he looked at it and he realized that like 4 of them were like 85% of his sales. So he went, and he just got rid of all the others and focused on those 4 of them and worked on and changed all of his marketing to try to get more like those 4. And that's the thing that scares a lot of businesses. It's like, no, get rid of those customers, get rid of them. The ones that are not providing you the best value, the ones that, I've had clients, I've done a call with them and I've sent them their money back. Because I just realized that, we were not a fit, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're going to find quite often that the client, ideally, the people that you love the most are the ones you make the most money off. And usually that is true. Usually the ones that you enjoy working with the most are the ones you're making the most money off of. And you want to look for that and figure out how you can find more people just like them. Because that's what I'd done. I had an agency doing all the social media marketing, local stuff, websites, all of that. And I'd sold that to another organization, and I left there and I was like, I was starting a software company that ended up not working out. So I started consulting again and said, well, who do I want to work with? Who would I really like working with? I said, I really like working with Tom. He's my consultant that works with behavioral healthcare clinics. I said, I like Tom's. I said, okay. And then I wrote down everything I liked about Tom and what Tom looked like, and, business consultant, specialized industry, gentleman who was, in his 60s, older. And I wrote all that down. I said, okay, now where do I find more guys like that? And I said, well, LinkedIn. They're on LinkedIn. So I said, okay. So then I started doing a LinkedIn strategy to generate clients. That's how I did it. And I found myself more Toms, and now they weren't all selling behavioral healthcare clinics. It's like I worked with a guy that sold Internet of Things consulting. I worked with a gal that's a fractional CTO. But it's all the same stuff basically for their business. They have the same steps they need to go through. But, when we're deciding who we want to work with, we need to look at those things. Look at where your revenue comes from, and if all your clients are the same price, look at who you really enjoy working with the most, and see if we can find more of those. See if there are more of those people like that out there, and just focus on those people. Because honestly, even if you don't build additional revenue streams, if all you do is tighten it down to you're working with people you're happy to get on the phone with every day, your quality of life improves, and usually your income will improve as well. But there's always that thing with us, with entrepreneurs. It's like, oh, we want to add another zero, but sometimes, hey, you can be even happier doing 1.5 and have just the right customers and be working on improving your margin. And, you can be thrilled doing that and really love going to work. Whereas you could get to 5 or 10 and hate going into work. It's like, my agency, it was like, I'm like, oh God, we're working with another dentist again. I mean, I got tired of it, but I had staff that loved doing that, but it just drove me nuts. I'm like, I got to go speak to another dental convention. It was just like, I was tired of it, but some people will love that and dive in deep, but I'm a strategy guy. So that's why I've realized that. And that's where I tend to focus my energies now.
Well, what I love the way you think is, and I think this is so revolutionary, because even when I was building my business, I enjoyed it, but was it like the thing that I loved the most? I love podcasting. And it's like the question you have to ask yourself is, what result do you want? And then what vehicle can get that result, right? Because like you just said, you may enjoy 1.5 million with 80% margin instead of, making a $10 million business and having a 40% margin, right? Hey, that's okay, right? Whatever it may be. And it's just dependent upon what the result is and finding that vehicle. Doug, man, I really appreciate just the immense amount of value that you brought, and really just diving deep into the marketing and the systems, the processes. Doug, how can our audience reach out to you and be part of your community and your engagement, man?
There are two places. One is thethoughtleaders.co. That's my course creation side of my business. You can sign up and talk with me. You don't have to do a course. If you want to do a mastermind or something like that, we can do that instead. But the sales page is all about developing a course. All the same steps to do other things. The other side of and the other place really is LinkedIn. My name is Doug McIsaac, DougMcIsaac, and I have Doug McIsaac actually everywhere except for Snapchat. So if you're looking for me, it's at Doug McIsaac at all the different channels, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, though I haven't posted on TikTok yet. I'm looking at maybe doing it, but YouTube, all those channels. But LinkedIn is the one I spend the most time on. So if you're interested in seeing my content and getting to know me a little bit better, LinkedIn is a great spot to go as well.
Awesome. And guys, those links will be in the description below. So make sure you click on that. Make sure you engage with that, because the biggest thing is, taking action, right? Implementing these things and taking action. So go ahead and take action and reach out to Doug and have a conversation with him and just consume a lot of his content. And Doug, before we let you go, is there any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience?
Don't be afraid to make your business smaller to make your business bigger. And that's that focus. That's what Tim Ferriss did. He chopped off a bunch of people and dropped his business down to 85%, but then he was able to catapult it up to 400%. Sometimes you need to get rid of clients that just aren't serving you well. It's not whether you're serving them or not, but they're not serving you. Don't be afraid to get rid of them, to focus on the clients that you can help and you can move forward. Because I think that's too often we're too worried about getting just enough money coming in, but we need to get rid of the people that aren't serving us so we can focus on the people that we can really help. And sometimes you need to make your business a little smaller to make it bigger.
Such valuable insight and huge value. Guys, that is Doug McIsaac. Make sure you consume his content. Make sure you click on those links in the description. And that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Until next time, remember, be uncommon.
Hey, stop. This is Christian D. Evans, host of Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. And I just want to say personally, thank you for listening to our podcast. And, if you love what you're hearing right now, please, like this, share this, and show some love to our guest, and write a review, and, share this with your friend, your family, someone that truly needs it, because at the end of the day, you can make an impact in that person's life by sharing their story with that individual. And again, if you're a new guest, welcome to our community. We're so excited. We're so just honored. And secondly, if you're a returning guest, hey, we appreciate the love. Thank you. Share this with your friend and family. And guys, remember, be uncommon if you can.